Welcome to the Tune Under podcast. We are jubilant. I can see Keegan already there. He's pretty excited.
Curse is over.
Keegan, I was going to come to you in a minute and ask how you feel about your duck being broken. So for people that don't know, Keegan has been on a few reviews. Keegan's been on a few reviews and we haven't won any of them. So for those who were on the audio, he's got his party hat on and he's trying to blow a party popper, which isn't working very well. I take it you're a bit happy, Keegan, to be on a win review.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good to be happy on a podcast instead of miserable and sad and bemoaning everything that's happened.
I'm going to take some credit for this as well because I was the one who scheduled you on for this one.
Absolutely.
And I was a bit
hat up.
Dubious about it. Yeah, send a hat, please. Yeah. Australia Post, it won't be here for a while, so it might be here in time for the next time.
That'll be the next win we have.
All right, what an intro. Obviously, we're here to talk about Newcastle 5, Brentford 1. We've absolutely destroyed Brentford, which we're going to get into and talk through. But it was a good match, and it's been an absolutely fantastic week for Newcastle. So we're going to get into all that. I am Jack in Brisbane. I seem to be a little bit sunburnt on here. I didn't realize I was sunburnt today, but it's been quite sunny in Brisbane, and I've been doing standard suburban things of mowing my lawn and just generally pottering around. So that's obviously what's happened. I'm a big redhead there. I've got Bobby, who's in Ballarat. How are you doing, Bobby?
Yeah, good until you said that, just rubbing it in, the sunshine and everything like that, mate. Yeah. But I'm good, and I'm happy that Keegan has broke the duck. And I was very nervous when you invited him on our podcast today, but we got through it in the end.
Yeah, it was a bit of a monkey, wasn't it, on our back? It was like, everyone started feeling a little bit uncomfortable about it, and we were only able to put them on previews. But Keegan, you've already introduced yourself, but how are you doing?
Good, really, really good.
Yeah,
it's a good day.
Keep your hat on for the duration, please.
I will. If my head starts going red, it's because these things are really tight. I'm not sunburned. I'm actually probably suffocating. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's good to have you as well, Bobby. So we're going to get into talking about the match. Like I said, it's been a really good week for Newcastle. I remember saying before the Fulham game, if we could get 6 points from these next two games, and if we could get some of our players back from injury, then it would really kickstart the season. And that's exactly what's happened, probably more emphatically than I expected it to. But it's been really good after what's been a bit of a difficult season at times with the results, if not the performances. But that's the first time that we've scored 5 goals in a Premier League game since, who knows this? Does anyone know when the last time we scored 5 was in a Premier League game?
2016.
Yeah, it was when we beat Spurs 5-1 when we were already relegated. So there was nothing on that game. And we went and absolutely hammered Spurs. So it was one of those weird end of season results that you get sometimes. But it's the first time we've scored 4 in consecutive Premier League games, or at least 4 since 2001. And we talked about this when we did the season review, but that was when we beat Middlesbrough, and then we beat Man United in the September 2001. So how do you feel, Bobby, now, like compared to, because I was with you for the Bournemouth game, we were in Sydney. We had a good time, but the football was not great. It was probably the worst performance of the season, that Bournemouth game, and it was a little bit deflating after that. So how are you feeling now? Like, it's a completely different viewpoint now, isn't it, from the last few games from after that Bournemouth game?
Oh, yeah, a lot better. That Bournemouth game, I think it was because we knew the weeks previously we'd been sort of cheated out of a few results as well. We left points on the table with it not being our fault. And then the Bournemouth game came and you said, all right, Bournemouth at home should be an easy win. And they parked the bus and we just had no answers, even though looking back on it, the stats, we should have scored 3 or 4 that game as well. So, but it was a bit deflating. But yeah, the last 2 results have been very, very good. And we're starting to get all our players back and fit and on the park. And it's all looking like up there in Queensland, bright sunshine.
Keegan, we've been saying for a while, haven't we, that somebody's gonna be on the end of a hiding.
Someone's going to cop it.
Someone's going to cop it, as the Aussies like to say. Fulham did, but that was a bit of a different situation because they had somebody sent off. And then Brentford very much did in the end yesterday as well. What's your sort of overriding feelings? Is it kind of relief that we've actually won these couple of games? Because it was getting a bit jittery, wasn't it, after Bournemouth, when we hadn't won a game since the start of the season, since the opening game.
Yeah. I think there was a bit of a monkey, similar to the one that I had on my back before the Fulham game. Like we have been, like Bobby said, sort of jibbed out of a few points. And when the realisation had started to set in that, shit, we haven't won since our first game. Like that's a few games we haven't actually won. And then once the monkey's off the back, then I think now they feel free. They don't have that pressure building up that, we've got to win or we've got to do something now. And you can see with the way they've played the last 2 weeks, with the freedom offensively, but also with that ruthlessness defensively as well. Like they seem like they're really in a sweet spot at the moment with how they're playing.
Yeah. We've got some kind of stats as well to back this up later when we're going to get into it. There's been some really good stuff flying about on social media to do with the different metrics, the attacking metrics and the defensive metrics. But basically, like these results have been in the post. They've been coming. We just haven't managed up until this stage to put somebody to the sword. But it's been, and Eddie said this as well, that it's kind of been coming. And I'm relieved as much as anything. Like I'm thrilled about how we've played, but I was starting to worry that we hadn't won. I knew we would. Like I trusted in the process, but like you said, it had been 6 games after the Forest game where we hadn't managed to win, even though we'd played well. So it was really important, I think, to get this win. And obviously, it was the anniversary of the takeover as well. So we've done our in-depth podcast about that. Me and Bobby and Craig did that, and that's been really good. We've had really good uptake on that, and it's been by far our most popular audio download. So thanks for people who've done that. So we've talked all about that, but there was a completely sort of joyous atmosphere, it felt like, at St James's Park yesterday. I've spoken to people who were there. And then war flags were back. So there was a problem at the Bournemouth game when the Queen had died. So it was a bit weird. Like there was no music beforehand or anything. And the war flags weren't there for that. But war flags were back, and they did something a little bit different this time. And it was kind of a tribute to the takeover. And they tried to do something quite clever with a rolling ticker, Sky Sports ticker, which don't know if that quite came off, but it was a good idea what they were trying to do. But they didn't have the vast flags everywhere like they sometimes have. I think the Arsenal one is going to be really difficult to top that, because that was like, I can't imagine what they might be able to do that's actually better than that. But it's good to pirates. Yeah, maybe. It's good to see them back, isn't it, Bobby? And good to see the crowd back in full voice again.
Yeah, I mean, like war flags are incredible. You know, what they've done for our supporter and our atmosphere at St. James is just, and you tip your hat to them. They've been superb. I thought, for me, it was a great flag display, but the banner and all that didn't work. I'd like to see a bit more flags surrounding it. But, wonderful effort and stuff like that. But yeah, they're pretty hard to top that Arsenal game. So we'll see how they go in the next few weeks.
Yeah. The home crowd make a real difference, and it was flat up against Bournemouth for various reasons, but partly because of the way Bournemouth played as well. They sat in and they frustrated us, and we didn't have the ability in that game to really break them down very well. So what Brentford did probably played in our hands a little bit. So we'll have a look at the team in a minute, but let's first have a look at the Newcastle lineup. So we were unchanged from the Fulham game, which we won obviously convincingly against 10 men, as it turned out to be. But Keegan, any kind of surprises to see the same starting lineup? Maxi came onto the bench instead of Dummett, so all of a sudden the bench looked a bit stronger. We had a few options there, but were you surprised to see the same team start that started against Fulham?
Yeah, 100%. I think most of us thought during the week when Eddie had said that Joelinton was fit, St. Maximin was probably going to be involved, Target was right. We probably all thought they'd come straight back in to the team, but he's rewarding the players who perform well against Fulham, and I think that seems to be the way he's going to operate. He done the same last year when Bruno signed. Bruno had to bide his time until his opportunity comes. So, like, as bad as it is, it's actually funny when you say our bench looks stronger, because I think if you took maybe Byrne, Longstaff, and Murphy off and put Joelinton, Maximum, and Target in, you go, our bench looks weak. So it's funny when you reverse it like that. But yeah, I think we're all kind of surprised that at least one of them three didn't start. But, you know, I'll back the guy who sees them 6 days a week rather than me who listens to watch for 2 hours and listens to a 10-minute press conference on a Friday afternoon.
Well, it's something he does as well, isn't it? Where if someone plays well, then they've got the shirt. And that's, you can't really argue with that. Maybe that's kind of like football management 101. Like, you keep a winning team, and that's not the way sort of modern football is. But what did you think, Bobby? Did you think? I thought Joelinton especially might come in because he was obviously fit again. But what did you think? Were you surprised that there weren't any changes from the Fulham game?
Yes and no. I think this is Eddie's operandi, isn't it? He sort of does this. You've got to play beneath yourself to lose your spot. If you're playing up to what he wants and the potential, he's going to reward you. And I think that's such a good thing to do, because, I mean, you don't want to play well and then be stripped because someone's reputation. You know what I mean? I think it's, the first way to get players a bit angered. But if you've got, someone like Joelinton who is a quality player and he sees Sean Longstaff playing well, he's got to fight just as hard. He's got to train just as hard, and it increases that competition. So all of a sudden, you don't have 11 men or 10 men competing for the starting berth. You've got 15, 16, 17, and it breeds competition. So I mean, I was surprised when the team just flashed up, but then after a moment of reflection, I thought, no, that's the way Eddie operates. So I'm not really surprised.
And I wondered as well whether the idea was to have that firepower on the bench for if it was a tight game, and if, like we just said, if it was reversed, like you get more of a lift from St. Maximin coming on than you would from Murphy coming on. So I wondered whether that played into it as well. Like, he hasn't played for 6 games or something anyway. But let's see what the kind of game state is and whether we needed him or not, and whether we wanted to get minutes in his legs, because we've now got 3 games coming up in a week.
I think he did mention that after the game, actually, that he did sort of have an eye on the upcoming fixtures and knew that these guys were going to be needed, so didn't want to burn them out now, but he'd rather have them absolutely cherry ripe for next week, or for the next week, or the next three games. So yeah, once again, it's pretty smart by him.
Yeah, like, that's what he does, isn't it? It's no surprise that he's thinking ahead. Like, you won't just be thinking one game ahead. You'll be thinking ahead. You'll probably be sort of categorizing these 3 games against Man United, Everton, and Spurs all together, and thinking there's 3 games. Let's sort of look at them as a block and see what we've got in terms of fitness. It looks like we've got pretty much everyone back fit now, apart from Isak, who doesn't seem far away, and Shelby, who seems to be making quicker progress than everybody thought as well. I thought he was going to be out until after the World Cup, but it seems he might be in line for a return sooner as well. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he actually makes the bench 2 or 3 games before the World Cup. I don't think he'd be in a position that you kick someone out of a starting spot at the moment, but it'd be good to have him back in the squad.
you look at Willock, he's played almost every minute of every game, so he's kind of maybe due a rest in the next upcoming games as well. So we'll see what happens with that. But let's have a look at the Brentford setup. So they lined up in like a 5-3-2 system. So when I saw that, I automatically thought that I was worried that they were going to sit back and try and defend a lot, because I thought, they've got a smart coach. I thought maybe they've seen the struggles that we've had against teams that have defended deep. But I was looking at a Twitter account called Talking Tactics, and what they said was that Brentford kind of prefer to keep an extra defender and a striker and two strikers. So they had Tony and Mbuemo up front. But that meant that we could then, we'll talk about what happened in the game, but that we could kind of overload their midfield. And that was why Bruno, who we're going to talk about a lot of times in this podcast, why he was able to do what he did. But it also made sense why Byrne played at left back instead of Target, because this is just way cleverer than than my brain can compute. Like when I'm watching football, I don't see it like this because I'm not tactically minded. But the idea was that Byrne would slot in as a back three effectively for us against the two strikers, which would then mean that Trippier could push into midfield, which is what, if you look at the map of the average positions, which is exactly what happened. So basically football coaches are clever, aren't they? And they're a lot cleverer than the average fan. And I'm pleased that we've got accounts like Talking Tactics on Twitter who can actually sort of explain this stuff a bit to the simpletons like me. What do you think though, Bobby, when you saw that lineup? Anything? Tony, obviously a concern maybe.
Yeah, I think they got some experience there with Aya and me in the defence, and Tony up front is always going to cause you some issues. But again, we should be doing the job against Brentford at home, and it proved to be that way. But just on tactics as well, like as we've talked about before, I think it's become almost positionless, and your setups are very fluid. I think that it can be a 5-3-2 or whatever it is, and then it converts to a 3-5-1 or 3-5-2-1, whatever it is, as different transactions happen in the game. So that's the way of modern football, and I think as we've alluded to, we've got one of the smartest guys in the room in all manager conferences with Eddie Howe, and he's at the forefront. So. Yeah, it's good to see.
And Brentford in the event, Keegan, didn't actually sit back, did they? They came to play, which played into our hands. Do you think, like in light of this game, do you think that there's a concern that teams might start doing what Bournemouth and Palace to an extent did and coming to St James's Park to sit deep and to try and frustrate us? Because they've seen what happened to Brentford. They've seen what happened even against Manchester City, where we were able to attack them and get in behind them. So do you think there's a concern now that teams are going to start doing that? And do you think like that's that or is that too much of a big kind of show of respect from opposition teams? And are you kind of psychologically beaten already if you're going to start changing the way you play to try and counteract a home team like that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be horses for courses. I think now, sort of after 10 or so games, it's when you sort of the lay of the land and you see where you sort of fit in the scheme of things and stuff like that. So at the start of the year, everyone thinks they're probably better than what they are. Well, everyone really rates themselves until they get a third of the season out of the way, and then you sort of see where you fall in the pecking order. Now, a team like Bournemouth, who know they're going to have to fight and scrap for every point they get, is going to be massive during the year. So a team like that, you expect them to do. But like a team like Brentford, Fulham, who still think they're actually going okay, like their latter position suggests that they've had a pretty good start. So that they're not in that spot now where they need to fight for everything and stuff like that. They're going to come and come to our place and throw punches. Like they're not going to scare of us. They're not going to sit back. So the thing will happen is, and it'll happen as the season goes on, as the table starts taking shape and things like that, the more games we play, then you'll see where teams are, whether they can have a go at us, or shit, we need to just to get something out of this and get out of here. Sort of like we used to do 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like we just try and get something from a game. Now, obviously, we were like that from the first game and still doing that at the last game. But I think, once the table sort of settles itself down and teams actually realise where they're at, then we'll get a better understanding, I think, of what teams are going to come here and park the bus and what teams are actually going to come and have a go and stuff like that. But I think it does send a few shutters up teams, knowing that if you have a go at us, you're probably going to come off second best.
But and at the same time, it's a risky strategy, isn't it, Bobby? To go into a game like Keegan just said, we used to do this all the time. And if you concede an early goal, like there's your game plan out the window and you're screwed, really. Like so, it's risky for teams to come to us and just try and sit deep. Do you think it's just going to be teams that already play that way that are going to do that, rather than teams changing to try and sort of match up what we're going to do and try and frustrate us?
Yeah, I think Keegan summed it up well. I think, a team like Bournemouth, they know where they stand and they're going to scrap and fight. But look, the Premier League's the elite competition. Every club in there is hiring managers that they think are the best, the best few in the world. Like you look at Wolves, they're about to get a European type coach that has won things all over wherever he's gone. So every club's got really good managers who are, pretty smart. Sorry, West Brom, you don't. But so they're all going to. They've all got tactics. They've all got tactics and what they want, how they want to play. So the risk is if you go away from that and pay us too much respect, it could fall apart. But I think clubs like Bournemouth and the ones down the bottom, as the season progresses as well, may have to revert to trying to score, to hold for draws and get points away from home. So that's something that we'll have to look into. And I'm sure after the Bournemouth game, Eddie Howe's already started planning for the next team that does that. I know, we have full faith in that's what he'll be doing. And I'm very confident if Bournemouth happened again, we'd be a much better show than what we displayed that game.
Yeah, and then we've got January coming up as well, where like Madison
time
could be back on the agenda if things keep going the way they're going for Leicester as well. But talking about managers, like the dinosaurs are extinct, aren't they now? Like Bruce
in the Premier League,
in the Premier League they're extinct. Yeah, like they're not going to be getting jobs. Like you said, like clubs are going for more for kind of younger sort of European, basically just smart coaches because there's so many out there now, and there's no real place anymore for what the kind of football that those managers kind of play, or the kind of what they bring to the Premier League is just not relevant anymore, I don't think. So it's a good thing. And like you said, we've got one of the best in the business now for approaching games and tactics and, having a plan and seeing that through and making sure he knows what's going on. So got into the game, and it was a little bit of a difficult start. It was quite sort of, we were trading a few blows. Miggy had a really good shot saved, which came from a really good crossfield pass from Bruno, which is the first outstanding thing he did in the game. But then Brentford scored a goal, and it looked at the time like it was going to stand as well. But VAR came to the rescue. I don't know, we talk about decisions evening themselves out, and we've obviously been really badly affected by bad decisions from VAR this season. But Keegan, this was it was given for offside against Tony, who was clearly offside. But I think the debate was around whether he was interfering with play. I think was that your understanding, Keegan, of what happened?
That's how I thought it happened. But honestly, in real time, I didn't actually pick it up. And then once they stopped the game and the ref was talking to the VAR, and then they showed the replay, and then I went, oh, that should be offside, because you can actually see Shah actually stepped towards Tony as he stepped over the ball, like he's actually drawn a defender to him because he was involved in the play. So I thought, as soon as I seen that, I said, well, I thought it had to be offside, but then I've also thought a couple of other things were pretty obvious as well. Yeah. So hopes weren't up that they was going to get overturned, but I think the longer it went on, it became more and more obvious that it has to be offside.
What about you, Bobby? Did you think that this was going to be, because at the time it just seemed like it was a goal, and then I didn't even realize it was, like Keegan, I didn't even realize it was potentially going to be an offside. What was your view of this one, Bobby?
Yeah, similar. At the time, I thought, no, that's a well-worked goal by Bournemouth and by Brentford, and fair play. It wasn't like the Fulham game where we were all over them from the start. It was a real topsy-turvy opening, so they were good for their goal too. But looking at the replay, it's by the letter of the law. It's offside. So I'm not going to argue, but no, I did feel for him because I think he didn't get a touch on it, and Shah sort of did hesitate, but it's a game of inches, and we got lucky on that occasion.
And you can't say that he's not interfering with play as well, because he basically almost did touch the ball. So, his presence meant that it impacted what our defenders did. So he was definitely interfering with play. So I think it was the right call. And it was, I was pleased to see that we got the benefit of a VAR call, because if that hadn't been given, and if he'd have said that he wasn't interfering with play, I think there would have been riots in St James's Park at that point.
Yeah,
but I actually think that this helped, and I was on the watch along with Craig and Dex as well, and we said that this actually helped to focus our defense a little bit, because it was a bit to and fro, and we needed to get some control of it. And I think that incident really helped us to realize, that we're in a game here and we need to sort ourselves out, at least defensively, because we'd been giving it away a little bit in the middle of the park as well. So a couple of minutes later, I think it was about 10 minutes later, we were ahead. And Bruno, so this was, I know you want to talk about the cross from Trippier in a minute, Bobby, as well, but this is the second game in a row where we've scored from a corner. And this is something me and you, especially Keegan, have been talking about all season. Like we've had more corners than anybody else, and we haven't managed to score from any of them until last week. But it's what I was saying before about how, like, he knows that that's been an issue, and then he's worked on it. And then, Bob's your uncle. We get one last week with Longstaff, and then we get another one with Bruno's header. So Bruno in his interview said that it was down to Eddie Howe's coaching that he's now able to score headers. And then Howe got asked about that, and he just burst into genuine laughter. He's like, I don't know where he's got that from. But yeah, Bobby, what about this goal? It was quality play, wasn't it? It was clever, and it was the Trippier again.
Yeah, what can you say? Like, we've got world-class players now playing for us, and that was on display with that goal. I mean, the ball from Trippier couldn't be any more perfect, and it's what he does. He delivers, these kind of balls into the box, and the finish by Bruno was, as perfect as you can get, the angle and everything like that. So, it's weird seeing these world-class players playing for Newcastle, and what a difference it does make, and I think Jason Tyndall should be credited as well. He works on a lot of the set plays, from what I'm being told or what I read. So, he's obviously working with the team and getting it right. And it was nice of Bruno to give Eddie Howe some credit, but I don't think I think he's way too humble to ever accept credit. And I think that's what, the way it played out. But that ball from Trippier should be in a museum, I think.
Yeah, it was so well worked, and like when you've got that quality, like, and who leaves Bruno unmarked, like kind of in that position.
Yeah, you have to watch. Yeah, you have to watch the replay to actually, from the side angle, to get a full appreciation of everything that had sort of happened. Like I know there was only sort of 3 people directly involved with the goal. Like Miggy passes it to Trippier, Trippier crosses it, Bruno scores, but. If you watch the replay, don't underestimate and don't sleep on Sean Longstaff's role in all this as well. Like he engages the defender, so he can't. So Bruno sort of starts at the top of the box, as in like a defensive player. Like if the ball comes out and stuff.
He was pretending to tie his lace, wasn't he, or something?
Yeah, and then as he makes the run, Longstaff engages the defender next to him so he can't peel off. And then by the time the other defenders realise that Bruno's made the run, he's 3 or 4 metres behind him. He's way too late. So, yeah, like Longstaff really, really good to just engage a defender and put a block on so Bruno could get that free header at the back post.
A team working together, all in.
A what?
It's amazing, isn't it?
A team, and they all know what's going on. That's mind-blowing.
There's a plan, and they're sticking to the plan. And also, Bruno's got silver hair now as well, so it's an easy target for Trippier's cross. He just has to look at the glint over in there.
And I can't wait for our Craig to have the same.
Yeah, don't worry, we're going to talk about that as well later. But Keegan scoring goals from corners, that's like almost as much cause for celebration as you coming on to talk about a win on a review,
podcast,
isn't it? Yeah.
The monkeys are just getting thrown off everywhere. But yeah, we spoke about it at length. Like, we just haven't scored, and to be honest, we haven't really looked like scoring from corners. But like they've changed things up a little bit. Mad Dog Tyndall's worked on a couple of routines at the training pitch, and it's good to see that they come off. It's actually funny when the camera cut to Eddie Howe after he scored that goal. He sort of gives Tyndall a bit of a tap on the back of the head to say, "Good one, mate."
Yeah, we have actually had 70 corners as well, which is the most in the league, and Man City's second on 61. So that comes as no surprise to anyone who's watched all of our games, because there's been periods of every game, apart from Liverpool, I think, was the only one where we might have only had one corner. But we've kind of like put pressure on almost every game, sometimes from the very beginning as well, where we've forced corners within the first few minutes. So if we're going to start making the most of these chances, then that's a whole other stream of goals that can come in from there.
Well, we should do because we've got about
Giants.
8 players that are over about 6'8", so there should be more goals, and they're the ones that aren't scoring. The Burns and the Botmans. So
so that was really good. So that gave everybody a bit of a boost and got Bruno into the in everybody's mind, as if he wasn't already in the mind, and he did something else later, which we'll talk about. But not long after that, it was 2-0. So, and this time it was Jacob Murphy. We're going to talk again, with reference to one of the other goals, about the pressing and the way that Newcastle are pressing high now and forcing high turnovers. But that's what happened for this. Like, it was the goalkeeper made a stupid mistake and he passed it out to the one person you probably don't want to, which is Callum Wilson. He still feels bad about pinching Willock's goal last week, so he thought instead of shooting, nobody expected him to pass this time, but instead of shooting, he squared it to Murphy, who had the simple task of putting the ball into the middle of the goal instead of towards a post. So 2-0, and Bobby, it wasn't game over, was it? At this stage, there was still a lot to play for, but it was a good example of a team who's full of confidence and who are executing a plan to what the manager wants them to do.
Yeah, I mean, 2-0 is never safe. It's the most dangerous scoreline in the game, so you never feel safe. But we were looking good at that stage. I just want to talk about that pressing. So Jacob Murphy, first of all, presses the keeper pretty high, which causes the keeper to panic a little bit. But Callum Wilson was so smart. He split the two defenders. So the keeper was sort of confused where to go because he made it seem like there was no gaps to either of them. So both of them caused the error, and then no one expected Callum Wilson to pass the ball, which obviously opened it up for Jacob Murphy to not hit the post for the first time in his life, which is great.
Well, it was Murphy's first goal in, I think it was 41 games or something. So, look, Murphy, I'm kind of on record on the podcast a few times and in things I've written as well about players like Murphy and Longstaff, who we know are not our best players and they're limited. But I've got an issue when people say that they're like championship standard, or sort of they treat them as if they're like competition winners kind of thing. And it's I get it. Like, I get why people don't want to see them play necessarily, but at the same time, they're really hardworking players, and they do contribute, and they have contributed. And if Eddie sees a role for them in the team, then that's good enough for me. Murphy, especially last season when Maxi was injured, he played a really important role in winning run, and he was keeping Miggy out of the team as well for a while. So I think like a bit of I feel a little bit vindicated. I'm not going to big myself up here, but I do feel a little bit kind of vindicated with with Murphy, contributing well in the last 2 games. I'm well aware that he might revert to type the next time he plays, and I don't think he'll be around long term. But it's really nice to see players, and he's a fan as well. Him and Longstaff are both Newcastle fans, so it's really good for me to see them sort of contributing and to see them. And like I said, like after the transfer window, that it's going to take longer than 2 windows to sort of get the squad up to the level we want. And these players are going to have a role to play for now, and if they can contribute like this, then that's fine. Like we've got, as I said, we've got 3 games coming up soon, so I think they're both going to keep on getting some minutes, and that's fine by me. The reaction to the team lineup against Fulham was disappointing. It's basically social media, which is like, it's sometimes good to stay off Twitter like around the time of the team being announced and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose it is what it is. Anyone got anything to kind of say on that, or Keegan, do you think that's fair?
It just kind of annoys me because the players we have, like, they might have a bad game, they might have 2 bad games, 3 bad games. They don't deliberately go out and play shit. Like, I don't understand the criticism of them. And like, it's fine, you can say someone had a bad game if they had a bad game, but the constant pile-on is just ridiculous. Like, if you want to get the best out of your players, like, you actually get behind them, encourage them, make them feel good about themselves, not stink the boots in every time they have a bad game. Like, it's not his fault. Like, he's not deliberately going out and being shit. Like, I just don't get, and not just us. That's like any team that you support in any sport. Like, I just never have and never will understand guys just like fans of their own team kicking their players. Like,
and this came up in the same week as well, that Michael Owen, of all people, like, again went onto TV and started basically just sort of talking about it when he signed for Newcastle and how he didn't want to sign and he wanted to go back to Liverpool and he had an agreement and all this kind of stuff, which he said quite a few times in the past as well, which makes me think there's part of his brain missing where he just doesn't seem to understand like why this offends people or why people don't like him. And you've had players like him, and you've had like Musa Sissoko is another one who was a talented player, but he couldn't wait to tell the press whenever he went on international duty, like wanted to play in the Champions League and he wanted to leave and all this sort of stuff. So when I see like honest professionals, and it happened with Kraft last season as well, like when I say honest players, limited but honest, like I'm not gonna sort of criticize them, too much overly anyway. But I get it. I understand why it happens. So, but hopefully these performances and the trust that Howe has got in them is going to make people sort of realize a little bit what they're in the team for and how they can contribute. All right, so we got to half time and we were 2-0 up, but we'd had 61% possession again. So another game in which we've had more than 60% possession at half time. Brentford had only had 1 shot on goal at this point, which not including the disallowed goal, which I was quite surprised at. I thought that it felt like they had more chances than that. But Bobby, it didn't really feel like necessarily comfortable 2-0, would you say, at halftime? We were full of confidence, but it wasn't sort of, we weren't thinking it was game over and we were on the way home yet.
No, because I think it was different from the Fulham game where we were totally dominant from go to woe, really. We didn't give them a chance even before the red card for them. We were just absolutely piling them into oblivion. Whereas I think Brentford gave a few patches in that first half as good as they got. And they were they had a striker that was he was in good form, Ivan Toney. He's hard to contain, even though Botman probably put him in his pocket this game. I think the first half, it wasn't as dominant as we have been, even despite the 61% possession.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't sort of let's sort of go home like we've won this like the Fulham game was. We definitely had won that one at half time. But we got into the second half and they started really well. Like they were on top, and it felt a little bit like the first half, the beginning of the game where it didn't feel like we were in control of it, and they were getting on top, and then they had a good shot that was saved, but the ball stayed in play, and then they ended up getting their penalty. At the time, it didn't, because you couldn't see the ball divert, I don't think, in real time. So I wasn't sure what it had been pulled up for at this point. But in the end, it was a penalty given against Dan Burn for a handball. Keegan, thoughts about that one?
Oh yeah, I thought it was a penalty every day of the week. His hands above his head, like no arguments or complaint. The only complaint, maybe not a complaint, but if it wasn't someone 8'7" tall, maybe their hand wouldn't have touched it because it would have went over the top of them. But that's about it. Like, it's a penalty every day of the week. Like, you can't complain about it. It is what it is, and you have to cop it on the chin.
Craig on the watch along had a little go at complaining about it, but then me and Dex were like, nah, come on, you've got to be like, if you're gonna put your hand up in the penalty box, like, even if like his back was to I don't think he was just didn't know where the ball was, I think, but that's still no reason for, like, if you're gonna put your hand up like that, then you're running the risk. Bobby, what was your sort of thoughts about that one?
Again, like the first decision that went for us, I thought, by the letter of the law, it is a penalty. You can't argue with it. It's just a shit rule. I don't know how a bloke who's 6'7" and jumps in the air is meant to have his hands by his fucking side. He'll end on his face. Like, to be honest, like, honestly, like, I just thought about when you jump up in the air, you try to get the momentum and your hands go up. If you had it by you're jumping up by your hands by your side, you probably fall down on your face and clatter. So I don't know what, I don't know what you're meant to do, to be honest, but it hit his hand, so it's a penalty. You can't argue. So, yeah, move on.
Yeah, it is. I think I always think, like, I try and be balanced about things and think, if that happened for us, how would I feel about it? And if that had happened for us, and I would have been screaming for a penalty and absolutely furious if it wasn't given. So that's a pretty fair indication that I think it was a pen. It was a pen, like, and Burn actually had a bit of a difficult game in patches as well. In the left back position, although, as we talked about before, he was more or less a third centre back for most of the time. But this came at about a time when I was wondering whether it might be a good idea to get Target on for him, who was on the bench for the second week in a row, to get like a more natural left back on. But then I read that tactics thing about how we were actually playing three centre backs because they had two strikers, which, like, maybe I should become more attuned to this stuff, but I'm not. So I think Burn finished the game in the end, didn't he? But Tony stuck the penalty away. A bit of a strange kind of run up, but then he stuck it away. He's got a really good record from penalties, and it was really getting nervy. I was like having visions of us going on to lose this, and that everyone losing their minds about it. But then that man stepped up again. So we're gonna talk about him now, because this was a huge moment of skill. It was a huge moment that encapsulates everything that Bruno brings to our team, and it shows the character of the team as well. Newcastle have already gained three draws from losing positions. So there was Manchester City, then there was Wolves, and then there was Bournemouth, where we've got points from losing positions. We did drop points from winning positions as well against Manchester City and Liverpool, but they're, two of the best teams in the league. But let's talk about what this goal meant in terms of the character first. Keegan, this is a good sign, isn't it? When a team concedes a goal, we did it last season against Everton as well. Concedes a really big goal, and then straight away goes and scores at the other end. That's a real big sign, isn't it, of character?
Yeah, 100%. And I think going back to what you said earlier about when the penalty, their disallowed goal, it was sort of the same. Like, it was a bit like basketball. It was just up and back. And it was like we just needed like a timeout just to stop the game and get a handle on it. Like, and as shit as it is to concede a goal, it sort of gave Eddie a chance just to, all right, this is what we're going to do. Let's settle down. And then after that, like, and with what Bobby said earlier about our pressing and stuff like that, like, we've always been I'd say a resolute defending team, like last ditch, every man diving in, like how many stuff off the goal line and last ditch tackles we've had. But now I've never seen us so desperate to win the ball back as high up the pitch. Like, honestly, in all my time, I've never seen us play like this. Like, even back to when I was a young kid and Keegan was a coach, it was always attack. Like, if you score 4, we'll score 5. There was no the emphasis on pressing and defending now was as like ferocious as I've ever seen us play, and it's an absolute joy. And the goals we scored yesterday were credit to that. And yeah, like when Bruno turns that ball over for this goal, there's 3 Newcastle players around him trying to win this ball back, and then he actually gets it out, and then he's off, and yeah, the rest is history. But yeah, our stuff like that this year has been incredible.
What about the finish, Bobby? This finish, this is a bit of an obscure goal it reminded me of, but Deco, who used to play for Porto and Barcelona and Chelsea, he once scored a goal. I think it was actually for Porto, where he was closer in, but he was like, everything said that he should have went for the far corner, and he made the eyes, and then he just stuck it in the near bottom corner. And that's what this goal reminded me of. It was just supreme technique and skill, wasn't it, this goal, Bobby?
Yeah, it's Bruno. He is world class. He can play in any team in the world. You know, he could start for any team in the world. How many times have we had a player like that? Alan Shearer, like, name me another player where we've had that could start at any other team in the world. Well, Bruno's it. He wasn't meant to be a goal-scoring midfielder when he got to us. That was one of the sort of criticisms about Bruno. He doesn't score enough. He's more defensive-minded.
We were warned.
And all that sort of thing. Yeah, we were warned. You know, it's a lot of money to give for that. But, I don't even have the words to say. You know, I haven't seen a player like him in Newcastle ever. You know, and this goes back to since I started. Like, he's quickly, rapidly rising the ranks of. He's probably the best midfielder I've seen. You know, in my time already. Just he's world class.
We're going to talk a bit more about. I was thinking about Johan Cabaye, and we've talked about this again previously, but like Bruno's a more rounded player than Cabaye. Cabaye was really good for us, and he got his move to PSG, and he was fantastic. But Bruno's got he's more rounded. He can do more things than what Cabaye could do, and I think he's just better than him as well. He's like, you know, I don't think Cabaye was ever really truly world class, but Bruno I think already is. But instead of just throwing because we've done this a lot of times, it's you run out of things to say about him. So what I've asked you to do is to think of 2 things each which you think really makes Bruno. What makes him stand out, instead of just saying how amazing he is, because he is. But Bobby, what are your 2 things that really sort of stand out for Bruno for you, and that what make him world class and such a good fit for this team?
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed from very early on when Bruno came into the side is his scanning. Now, it's a skill that you're taught, or you should be taught at a young age. It's just knowing where you are in the field, knowing where your opponents are, and he just does it so well. He finds space where there's no space, and he knows where everyone is, and his ability to do things in tight spaces is because he sees the game and knows where it is because of his ability to scan the pitch at all times. His head, if you actually watch him, he's always moving his head, looking around and seeing. And I think I've said this on the pod before. It was one of the skills that I've seen, and I've actually showed to my academy that I run here in Ballarat. I've showed vision to the kids because it's a perfect lesson for them that we're trying to implement with our 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, because it's something that it doesn't come naturally. You've got to work at it. So I think he's one of the best I've seen at it, and it helps him in a lot of areas. And the other thing about Bruno is his determination to win. And this is a bit weird, but it comes from his ability to speak the English language. He is just fluent in English after being here not long at all. But apparently he has his partner speak only English at home because it's the way they're going to get there faster, and it's going to make him better. So these little intricate details that he will bring, like his ability to want to learn English quickly, it just shows his winning mentality. It just shows he wants to be the best at whatever he is, whatever he does. So yeah, they're the two qualities that I think make Bruno Bruno.
Yeah, Eddie Howe's talked about his character as well. Like we know that they're big on character, signing players who fit in and who are going to buy in, professional, who are going to buy into what they're trying to do. But he's talked about his positive attitude around the place. You can see from social media, him and Joe are obviously best friends, but he's a real positive influence on everybody else as well. And him and Trippier in particularly, like if you're lining up with those two in your team, like I used to think this about Shearer, like if you've got him in front of you, you're going to feel good. Like you're going to feel like you're going to get something from this because they're so good in the way they carry themselves and the way that they approach games. Professionalism allied with world-class ability, and that's what you get. And I'm pleased it was him that scored this goal because it epitomized the character of the team, and he was the man who, in this game, just drove that forward. He was everywhere. He had so many touches, and he'd ran almost 10 kilometers when he came off on 75 minutes. So, and he'd only just come back from injury. So it just sums him up. He's a phenomenon. Keegan, what were your things that you thought about for Bruno?
Yeah, I thought his hair stood out a lot.
His hair definitely stood out.
I think, my first thing was sort of similar to what Craig had said, where he receives the ball a lot of the time with an open stance. So there's a saying in footy, be where your feet are and you'll go where your feet are. So if he picks it up and his feet are facing towards goal, then his first instinct is probably going to play it back towards our goal. But when he receives it with an open stance like that, he can actually get his head moving like Bobby said, and he can look and play that forward pass and get our game going forward. Like it's a really underrated thing that you probably don't realize it until you actually look for it. And then you're like, oh wow, like he actually does that a lot. And then you watch other midfielders, no disrespect, but someone like a Longstaff who just sort of pick it up, play it back to the centre back and play that safe ball. He doesn't really get himself in a position. And like you said, like limited players know what they can do and what they can't do, and they play to what they can do. But Bruno's that guy. Like he can do what he likes and he knows what he can do. And when he sort of gets himself in a position like that, and then which leads on to the second thing that I love is his ability to put himself between the ball and his opponent. And he doesn't look like an overly strong guy, but he's so good over the ball and he can really protect the ball and not get it taken off him very much because he's got that ability to move his head, see where they're coming from, and put himself between his opponent and the ball and get the ball out from under his feet. Like they're little things, but they make the biggest difference. Like, yeah. And everyone says like it can be an easy game. Like if you just master the fundamentals, you could be a really, really good player. Like it's just these little things that open up everything else.
He's never flustered, is he? Like there was a moment, and that's been doing the rounds where like the ball came to him quite deep in our half, and he just basically just popped it round someone, and then ran the other way, and then he side foot past outside of his foot past it picked his pass, straightforward pass. And he does that kind of thing like multiple times each game, which retains possession for us. You feel confident with him with the ball in our box, even in a way that you don't with other players.
Yeah, remember the Everton game when he came on against
first
Everton?
game.
Like, what the bloody hell are you doing? And then now we know, that's him. That's what he does. Like, don't worry about it.
You can see why he's starting games for Brazil, and it's I never expected us to have a player of this standard at this stage in the project, in the rebuild. And I think the fact we just need to. I don't want to put a downer on things, but I want to, because we've been talking a bit about when is he, like, how long are we going to be able to keep him for, and what needs to happen for us to be able to match his level of sort of, because he's too good to not be playing in the Champions League for his career, and I think he's turned 25 now as well. So, Bobby, what do you think we need to do as a club? Where do we need to be in the next year or two to make sure that we keep Bruno? Or, if we do sell him, what kind of money are we going to be asking for?
My heart's breaking just thinking about this, to be honest, because
it's
sort of like,
I know, sorry, but
I think it's inevitable unless we make Europe, unless we're a Champions League team in the next year or couple of years. The one thing about Bruno, we talked about his character. He obviously loves the place and everything like that. But a couple of years, he's 27. If you're not in Europe by your peak, is he going to look back and go, I should be playing Champions League? So I think that's that part of the question. I think we have to, be knocking on Champions League door or be in the conversation. And a fee, I think we had this discussion with Lee, and I'll dob Lee in here because it's fun to do anyway. But he said he's worth £60 million, and we all just sort of scoffed at that. I ain't selling him for $100 million at the moment. So, what is he worth? I don't know. Infinity. I wouldn't sell. Like it's as simple as that. So, but I'd be disappointed if the club sold him for under $100 million.
Yeah. What about you, Keegan? Do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think that he's still going to be here in 2 years' time, sir?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Why?
Because because he loves it. He loves it here, and he loves us. We love him. Like I can't see us getting worse. Like I think is if we continue to show improvement year on year, and you can see we're not far away. And I think especially the next 18 months, or I don't know if you want to call 3 transfer windows, they're going to be massive. Like I think once we get that commercial side of things rolling and we get a lot of money coming in and we can start paying that little bit extra for players, like our improvement could be really quick. It's just we've just got to get this commercial stuff sorted to get our revenue streams going really well. And I'm sure you guys probably read that article in The Athletic with the commercial department, like Manchester United have 250 and we've got 4. Like, like it's ridiculous. So, I mean, there's a lot of scope to improve. And I think if our performances on field continue where they are, I think that improvement can come a lot quicker than what everyone sort of realizes. Like, we're going to be box office.
It's sort of my worry,
very soon.
It's sort of my worry because we are so, like, we inherited a skeleton club, and there's so much to do, and we keep forgetting it. These owners have done so much in 12 months, but there's still so, like, those articles just put an exclamation mark of how much more work we need to do. And, life is about timing, isn't it? And is the timing right with Bruno being, the 25 years old, and do we make up enough ground to be that European? It's all questions that, I don't really want to think about. I just want to enjoy him at the moment. And, every game it's a joy, and I'll leave the heartbreak to when it actually happens, and I'll probably, be pissed off for a long time.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about Bruno as well is that he seemed to understand he seems to just get the club, and that's important. He could have gone to Real Madrid or even Arsenal or another Champions League team, and he would have just been another midfielder. He would have been a good
another
one.
bear bob in the shower.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
but whereas here he's like what we building the team around.
Yeah.
And he's going to help attract other players as well.
Yeah.
So it depends on his character. Like, does he? We hear that everyone wants to play in the Champions League, but does he want to do that over potentially winning a trophy with Newcastle? Which, if you look back at his career, like, winning a trophy with Newcastle would, well, fair enough if he goes to Real Madrid or someone, but like, that's going to be more special than playing in the Champions League for a season or two for someone potentially. So it depends on whether he weighs these things up as well. But I'm like you, Bobby. Like, I'm just going to enjoy him. Like, I'm realistic about where we are as a club. That will, every club is a selling club. Really, maybe that's not Manchester City now, or Bayern Munich maybe, or even they lost Lewandowski, didn't they? So
yeah,
like, I'm realistic about where we are, but I think we've got another few years of Bruno. So let's just enjoy this God while we've got him, because he's absolutely astonishing to watch play football. So, right, that was good. 20, 25 minutes on Bruno. We could have talked for much longer about him. It's not long enough.
I'll tell you what, it beats spending 25 minutes talking about shitty VAR decisions.
It does, yeah, absolutely. Right, Keegan. Absolutely right. So that was 3-1, and then we kind of took control from here, and they never seemed like they were going to get back into it from this point. And then not long after that, it was 4-1. Miggy, who became the top goal scorer for us with his fourth goal of the season. It was another mistake forced from pressing. Miggy is a player who, when Howe came in, I just thought he's tailor-made for this style of play, because he just runs. Like, that's one thing he is good at. He's good at running, and he's got the stamina. But he had a bit of a difficult start, and he wasn't really he wasn't even starting every game last season. But then he obviously came in and had that really good preseason, and he's kind of taken that form at least into this part of the season. I think there was still concerns about him early on about his output, and before the Fulham game, I remember on the Fulham preview having the same conversations about a lack of end product from Miggy and Fraser, but he did what he is good at doing: close down. The defender made an absolute balls of it, and then Miggy just put it in the net. Another stat about the turnovers we were talking about: Newcastle have had 94 high turnovers this season, so winning the ball in sort of high positions, which is the highest in the Premier League, ahead of even Manchester City. So, like, to have changed what we were to what we are now, like with
the complete opposite.
Some of the same players, it's the complete opposite. Miggy played most games under Steve Bruce as well, but for him to be sort of playing the role he is playing now in this team, this iteration of this team, is really good. And yeah, the Talking Tactics account again was saying, just talking about how we press high and we create these overloads with the fullbacks going into midfield, which helps us to press as well. 4-1, definitely game over. But Bobby, you've been a bit not down on Miggy, but the jury's still out, isn't it, for you with Miggy? But like, if he keeps on scoring goals, he's going to stay in the team, isn't he, for now?
Yeah, he has to. His performances the last 2 weeks have been very good. His game against Bournemouth, again, he might evolve a little bit more as well. So his end product, he's no left, he hasn't got a right foot or a left foot. I forget which one now.
Right foot, yeah.
Right, yeah, he doesn't have a right foot. It's a bit worrying, and I think he's one of those evolution players where I think, like the Sean Longstaffs and the Murphys and the Ryan Frasers, that you wish well, and you shouldn't absolutely have a go at them, but I think eventually will be sort of replaced with better models, so to speak. But yeah, Miggy shut me up in the last 2 weeks, that's for sure, because I was really down on him after Bournemouth, I must say. I really frustrated by his output. He's running into no man's land, like with the ball, and it was just frustrating. But he's going to have those games. It'll be interesting against the I don't know if they're a better team, but whatever, Manchester United, how he goes, and stuff like that. So to see how he evolves, but if he keeps doing what he's done the last 2 weeks at least, yeah, well, he deserves to start, and all fair play to him.
It's probably another example, Keegan, isn't it, of Eddie Howe getting his hands on a decent but limited player and then turning them into much better than what we probably thought that he would be able to.
Yeah, and not just him, but it probably goes for nearly the whole team, where they're at that level now, and their confidence. Like a lot of people talk about, what is confidence? How do you get confidence? And I've always thought you get confidence by implementing what you've trained for, and then watching it work, and then you get the results, and then it sort of just inspires you to do it again because you know it's worked and you've seen it work. And now with this pressing and stuff like that, like it's contagious. Like they've seen, like with that stat about they're leading the league in front half turnovers and stuff like that. Now they're starting to get a bit of reward on the score sheet with converting these turnovers and turning them into goals, which was probably the biggest issue the first 6 or 7 games, I guess, that we had a lot of shots, but we weren't scoring them. And we spoke about it on the pod. Like we're just missing that final third of that cutting edge. But now, like they've got their tails up and this stuff's working, and they're just feeding off it. They're like seagulls to a chip now. Like it's so good to watch.
Yeah, there's another account, guy called Kev Lawson on Twitter who works for StatsBomb, and he's actually started doing work that's been going on at the Newcastle website, but he's been doing like some work on the metrics of what the team's doing now compared to what it used to do. So for the people who are watching, I'm just going to flash this up. I'm not going to go into this in detail because it's like quite a detailed radar sort of thing, but basically, like you can see that from the first 8 games from last season, we were sort of in the really low percentile for all of these attacking metrics. So XG shots, counter-attacking shots, high press shots. We were like sort of towards the bottom of the league for these metrics last season. And now we are towards the top of the league for them all. It's been a complete turnaround, a complete shift in how we've managed to do, how we're approaching games and what we're doing when we've got the ball. And that's why I was talking before the Fulham game about the underlying numbers have been good. Like our XG's been high, and we've been having a lot of shots on goal. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's been coming that we're gonna give somebody a hiding, and we've done it twice now in the last week. But we're not just better than what we used to be. We're like top 6 standard for these metrics. So like the league position we're in now is not a false league position, and there's probably even an argument to say that we could be at least 3 points better off, probably 4 or 5 points better off if decisions had gone our way. Yeah. So have a look at the and just for comparison, here are the ones for the defensive stats as well, which are also like through the roof better than what they were. So have a look at Kev Lawson on Twitter. This is just really, really interesting stuff if you want to get a bit more in depth into what's actually happening. And it's just sort of indicative again of the work that Eddie Howe has done and his coaching staff that they've managed to do over, he's been there for almost a year now, but like a lot of the players are the same players still that we hear when he came in. So you don't need us to tell you that the previous manager was underperforming, but like we're not just sort of improved. We're a top half team now. We've got top half players, and like it's not luck. There were elements last season in the run that we had where we were picking up points and wins the underlying numbers weren't that good, so that was not sustainable. If we didn't sort of change the way we've played, and there's going to be a few sort of teething issues like the Bournemouth game with this, and we need some better attackers as well to make the most of it. But like, what do you think, like, Bobby, when you sort of look at those metrics and how the season has gone so far compared to last season.
It's a difference between Steve Bruce and Eddie Howe, isn't it? No, like we felt it. Like I think just before the Fulham game, though, we were feeling down on our luck because I think we knew we played well. We knew, without even looking at the metrics, we were a different team. We're a more attacking team. We like to control the ball a bit more, everything like that. You could just feel it. So, but to see those underlying stats, we are a bona fide top 6 team at the moment. So if we keep displaying what we're displaying and keep working what we're working on, there's no reason, none at all, especially as our players, we've had a bad injury luck as well. Like, let's face it, most of our key players have been on the sidelines. So if they can be fit and we can keep these metrics going, then there's nothing stopping us from making the top 6. Absolutely nothing.
I think the Man United game and the Spurs game will be really good. And actually Everton as well have had a good, decent start anyway, lowest conceded goals in the league. So it's going to be a good indication of where we're at and to see if we can keep on dominating teams the way we have been. But Keegan, it's looking good, isn't it? We still haven't finished talking about this game yet. There was another goal to come, but it's generally looking good now, isn't it? Especially with these last 2 games.
Yeah, I think sometimes you don't need the numbers. Like your eyes tell you what you see. Like you don't, but it's good to have the data to back up what you think you've seen as well. Like there was times, I think it was the 2021 season where like we were shit. We were absolute shit, but we were winning games. Like every stat suggested that we shouldn't be winning. And somehow we were. And everyone said, like, that's great, but it's not sustainable. And then that's what happened sort of the first half of last year was we actually were a true reflection of who we were until the takeover happened. Now I think it's the same thing. We're a true reflection of actually who we are now. And I think the stats and our table position confirm that we are one of the better teams in this league at the moment.
Yeah. So we're a good team, basically, and long may that continue because it's
we're class, man.
It's good to see and we've got genuine world-class players in the team, like we've already talked about. But there was another goal to come in this game, and this was a particularly exciting goal for members of the Two and Under podcast because Craig, in his excitement on I think it was on Friday, said that he's put in our group chat. He sent a photo of Joe Linton and Bruno, who'd obviously dyed their hair silver or blonde or whatever you want to call it. And he was obviously, I think he'd had a few beers as well, and he was excited. And he said,
a couple of confidence boosters.
He said that if we scored 5 goals in the game, he was gonna do a Joe Linton and a Bruno and dye his hair silver. So his reaction on the watch along was something to behold yesterday when Miggy scored and it was 4-1, and he started to get. He's a bit twitchy. Anxious about it. He was getting nervous. He was like, you could tell
he's getting real twitchy.
He kind of wanted us to score because he's like a massive Newcastle fan, but also he doesn't want to have to dye his hair silver. So especially because he's got a job interview tomorrow. he was like, right. So we scored, and Dex's stream was a little bit ahead of mine and Craig's. And you could just see him put his head in his hands. He was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!" His heart absolutely sank. And he put in the chat today, like, that sinking feeling when something happens, and you've got to do something. So
Sickiest, guttiest.
He tried to get out of it, and he said, "Oh no, hang on! I said we would score 5 goals, not that there would be an own goal."
Yeah.
And then Bobby in the chat just pointed out to him that that's not actually how football works. Like, if you kick it into your own goal,
it goes
a goal for the opposition. So
he wasn't getting out of it. There's no chance
he's not getting out of it. We might let him do his interview first, and because we kind of want him to get a job, but he's not getting out of it.
Yeah, he just made a move to a new city, so
he's going to be let's cat in the car, isn't he? Yeah. His glasses on, platinum hair, living large.
Because the funny thing is as well, like he doesn't have like long hair all the time either. He just said that he's moved house and he just hadn't got to the barbers, so like he's usually got shaved hair, but he's going to be walking around Mackay with like shoulder length silver hair soon. It's going to be absolutely amazing to see.
He'll fit right in there.
So stay tuned to our channels to see this, because it's going to be something quite spectacular.
Slim Craigie.
Yeah, Slim Craig. And it was good. It was good to see Newcastle score 5 goals as well for the first time in the Premier League in 6 years or so. And that kind of just sort of rounded it off. Maxi and Joe Linton were on by this point. They combined, and poor Ethan Pinnock, who was at fault for Miggy's goal, put the ball into his own goal. Ethan Pillock, yeah, it wasn't a good day for him.
I'll tell you what, we've scored 5. Bruno's put in an absolute worldie, and the happiest I was because Craig's got to do it.
Yeah, like it's good. I've put a little video out of the exact moment that happened on the watch along, and you can just see me and Dex just crack up laughing at him, and he's just got his head in his hands. He doesn't know what to do. So I would recommend people go to our social media Twitter account and have a look at that as well. It's really beautiful. But that was the end of the game. It was an absolute rout in the end, which we'll get the stats up, but it didn't feel for part of this game like a 5-1 win. But that's what happened in the end. The possession in the end was down to 54% for us from 61. So Brentford had a little bit more of the ball in the second half, but like as soon as we got that third goal, like that just knocked everything out of them. And like I said before, that character for us. But yeah, Keegan, it maybe wasn't really a 5-1 in the end, but that was, we're not going to complain, are we? We're going to take it.
Oh no, it was the best 5 we've ever seen, isn't it? But I think after the third goal, I think that sort of took the wind out of their sails, and I don't think they were ever going to come back from that. And the fourth definitely was the final nail in the coffin. But I think we did take our foot off the gas a little bit after that, where we weren't as, I guess, relentless as what we were at the start of the game. That might be a bit of fatigue as well, but I think there was sort of a bit of in-game management going on there, where we just, instead of just relentless Adam, we sort of went back to picking and choosing when we're going to go and when we're going to sort of sit back and conserve, which is really good. I think, I'm not sure, it might have been after the Bruno goal, Eddie called Trippier over, and they'd obviously wanted to try and get a message out to the players during that goal to change up or do whatever they needed to do. So, yeah, I'm not too bothered by the possession stats and stuff. I think the shot stats and stuff are what we sort of not worried on, but we sort of focus on, and that gives you a better indication of who's been in control of the game, I think, and who's looks like scoring the most.
Yeah, and like we said, like we're routinely having sort of 15, 16 shots a game. Previously, we weren't scoring goals, or we were just scoring 1 goal, but this was a game where everything clicked. Thomas Frank said that they'd made a lot of mistakes, which was true. So they had kind of gifted us. And to his credit, he didn't blame the disallowed goal as well. He said that, look, like if you're going to concede 4 goals, like bad goals like that, then you can't complain about having a disallowed goal. But it was 5 goals, and it took us up to 5th in the table as well. So Bobby, like the league table now is looking a bit more like probably what our performances have been reflective of than just before the Fulham game. What do you say?
Yeah, I think this is sort of exactly where we should be around anyway. I still think there's 4 points that we should have been had, and that would have put us up to 4th. But 5th with the goal difference, not only positive but 8 positive, is something I'm not used to being a Newcastle fan. I think that's great to see, and as I said, we keep playing like we're playing. The metrics keep staying like they are, and we keep our players fit. There's no reason, there's nothing there that I'm sort of worried about. Liverpool will make a march up the table, but the likes of Bournemouth and Fulham and Everton and Brentford and Leeds and Aston Villa that occupy that page, we're better than all of them. So keep doing what we're doing, and we should be in for a very good season.
Yeah, we've got Man United are playing Everton, I think, away today, aren't they, or tonight or something. But then we've got Man United coming up, and then we've got Everton, and we've got Spurs. So how do you kind of see, Keegan, sort of those three? We'll be doing previews for the games and obviously covering them like we usually do anyway. But how do you see those games going forward? Like, do you think that we'll still be hoping to kind of be in and around that kind of top 6 after those games? That's what will be the target.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely we could get potentially five points. Like, I can see us beating Everton, at least getting a draw out of Man United and Tottenham. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised with the way we're playing if we rolled Man United at there. Like, I don't think they're going that good. I think they're obviously instability. They've got a Europa League as well this weekend, which is good for us that we get a full week of training, and they've got a game to play. And I think with their high intensity sort of style, we could really get at them early and bit of an investment, I guess, at the start of the game to put them under the pump and hopefully get the reward later on in the game when they start getting a bit tired and fatigued and stuff like that. We can sort of start cashing in. But yeah, I think, yes, in the next week, I guess, well, not the next week, but after the week of the Man United game, I think that's going to be a really pivotal 3 games for us to see where we end up there. And then that way we've knocked out Man City, Tottenham, Man United, Liverpool, all sort of in the first 10 or 11 games. So, which could open up the draw for us after that as well. If we can sort of get a bit on, we can really get a head of steam up.
Yeah, we've got Chelsea as well, and the last game before the break for the World Cup. So if we can get into that, that position in and around where we are, and like you said, there's no reason from performances and the numbers, and the evidence of our own eyes, why that can't happen. If we can get to that stage and touch still, then I think that's been, exceeded expectations for the start of the season. I did just want to talk about, there's not really any point in doing a man of the match for this because everyone's just going to say Bruno. But there's someone another big signing we made who's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, but who is just settled into this team and into this league like he's been playing in it forever. And it's a 22-year-old centre-back, Sven Botman, who it's quite hard for a 6'4" giant to kind of go under the radar in the way he has, but it's probably testament to how good he is and how well he's sort of settled into the team and to the league that people haven't been talking too much about him. So I think I just wanted to give him a bit of praise, really, because he's brilliant. He's not getting the headlines that Bruno or that Miggy at the moment are getting, but Bobby, he's been he took him. I think he started the second game. Actually, didn't start the first game, but he's came in for the next game, and he's been in that centre back position for most of the games since then, with Burn going out to the left. But what do you make of Sven Botman's start to Newcastle, and what do you think he can do for us sort of this season and going forward?
Yeah, again, he's one of the better defensive prospects we've had at Newcastle. We haven't had many great defenders. I think we had Jonathan Woodgate make our team of the last 20 years or whatever it was, and he played 16 games for us or something like that. So we haven't been blessed with key defensive prospects, but this kid, and he's a kid, is just incredible. His ability to read the game, the knocks on him were his pace, but you don't need to be the fastest defender if you read the game as well as he does. And at 6'4", his athletic ability to get his leg in and dive and all that sort of thing is really good. But I just want to talk about his passing. It is. I haven't seen a defender pass the ball as well as he does. He breaks lines he's able to get it over one line to the next and open up opportunities for us to start attacking. So, yeah, I mean, he's only 2 minutes into his Newcastle career. So as he develops, as Howe gets to work with him, and it's just an exciting prospect to have on our books.
Yeah, Keegan, anything to add there? He's composure, isn't he? He's composed. He's just And that was the reason why I was missed the bus that time as well, where I got stuck on the bus because I was watching Sven.
I can understand now. Yeah, but yeah, he just sort of I just wrote some stuff about him, and it's sort of the same as what Bobby said. He's just there. You know what I mean? Like they play a ball through, he's just there already. Like he's rarely caught out of position. Yeah, he could be anything. Like he's played 5 or 6 games, and I think he only played because Target was injured, really, which forced Burnout to left back, and then he come into the side. So, yeah, I think it's up to the left backs for Burn and Target to fight out now, because I don't think Burn's going to get back through the middle unless there's an injury to Shah or a suspension or something like that.
Yeah, and Botman's not far away from his first goal either. He's kind of in and around there, and he's probably got the ability to score maybe sort of 3-4 goals this season. I remember I was thinking about what you were saying there, Bobby, about the pace thing, and John Terry never used to have a lot of pace, but he was just such a good defender because he knew where to be and he had that intelligence, and he used to score. He used to almost get double figures sometimes for goals scored. So if you've got your defenders who can do that as well, which Sven has been close a few times, I think there's a lot more to come from him. I think that's it. I think we'll leave it there. This has been. You just love reviewing wins, don't you? They're just so good. Everyone's just in such a good.
Don't know. I wouldn't know.
You need to wear.
I'll take your word for it.
You need to wear that hat next time as well.
I'm going to keep it now. Definitely.
Yeah, but congratulations to you, Keegan, on your first review win.
Yes, it's been a pleasure.
Congratulations to Craig, who's going to have silver hair in a few days. And congratulations to us at the Tune Under podcast for getting our 1,000 subscribers as well. Awesome. We've realized that if people like on YouTube, so do the thumbs up, then that's good for us because it gets more people, more recommendations, and more people watching us. So please do that. And if you're listening on the audio as well, if you do a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, like a 5-star review, and if you do like a bit of a comment, then that is good for us as well. They've all got algorithms, these things, which mean that you have to get sort of people doing things like that to get going more. But we're definitely kind of getting better at what we're doing as well. We're enjoying this and we're having a good time, as you can probably tell. So, and it does help when Newcastle are doing what they did and they're doing their part as well. So we'll call it a night. I think, Keegan, you'll be back for the Man United preview, and we've got a Man United fan from Australia coming on as well.
Yeah, we've got the United Pubcast guys coming on, I think Thursday night.
Yeah.
We'll flick that out. So, yeah, apologies in advance for the shonky hosting, but I'll get better and you'll get used to it, so don't stress.
Just wear your hat and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll take all the heat off it.
All right. Thanks, Keegan. And thanks to you as well, Bobby.
See you, boys.
And all right. I'll see you later. Bye.